Good evening, everyone. Let me call to order this meeting of the West Palm Beach City Commission. It is Monday, March 31st, 2025, and the time is 5 p.m. We will begin this meeting with a moment of silence as we do all of our meetings. A moment of silence, please. Madam President, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me remind everyone of the rules of civility and decorum which govern this meeting. Officials shall be recognized by the chair and shall not interrupt a speaker. Public comment shall be addressed to the City Commission as a whole and not to any individual on the dais or in the audience. Displays of anger, rudeness, ridicule, impatience, lack of respect, and personal attacks are strictly prohibited. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, and similar demonstrations should not be permitted. Please govern yourselves accordingly, as offenders may be removed from the meeting. Also, anyone wishing to speak shall complete a comment card for each agenda item the person wishes to address, which shall include the person's full name, address, and the numbered agenda item. If the card is not completed in entirety, the person will not be recognized. Thank you. Madam City Administrator, are there any additions, deletions, reorganization of the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a request from the applicant on item 10.2 regarding a major amendment to the Palm Beach Atlantic University Community Service Plan Development, a request to continue that item to the board meeting of April 14th, 2025.
That's item 10.2?
Yes, you will have to take separate action on that request when the item comes before you.
Okay, very good. And we have a date certain?
April 14th.
Okay, thank you. All right. I now have the distinct pleasure of recognizing, as you all recall, during Black History Month, each of us selects and recognizes a significant member of the community, African-American member of the community, for recognition. The person who I am recognizing was unable to join us on that day, but she is with us tonight, and that is Dr. Ava Parker, who is the president of Palm Beach State College. Let me just read a little bit of her bio. Dr. Parker, Palm Beach State College President Ava Parker leads with strategic approach, emphasizing innovation, student success, and business and community collaboration. She is the first female president in the history of the institution, which opened in 1933 as Florida's first public community college. Growing with the county, the college now offers more than 130 programs of study, including bachelor's and associate degrees, professional certificates, and career training. Before joining Palm Beach State in 2015, President Parker was Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Florida Polytechnic University, the state's first public university focusing on applied research in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields. She also served for more than a decade on the Florida Board of Governors of the state university system and served on the University of Central Florida's Board of Trustees. She was a partner in the Jacksonville law firm of Lawrence and Parker, general counsel at Edward Waters College, general counsel for the 11th Episcopal District of the AME Church, assistant general counsel for the State Department of Transportation, and assistant public defender in Miami-Dade County. She currently serves on the board of directors of Orchid Island Capital, a publicly traded specialty finance company, the advisory board of the Community College Research Center, and member of the Orange Bowl Committee. And President Parker earned her BA and JD degrees from the University of Florida. She is married to Joe Gibbons. They have 2 children and enjoy spending their time in the wonderful backdrop of Palm Beach County. Please join me in recognizing Ava Parker on for Black History Month and also the last day of Women's History Month, so it's quite appropriate. Ava, let me come down and give you this certificate. I'll get it to her. Thank you so much for all you do. Want to say a few words?
Thank you so much, Mayor James, for the opportunity to be recognized on such a very special occasion, and also to have it as the last day of Women's History Month. It makes it extra special. It's so funny, when I asked Mayor James if I would have an opportunity to speak, he said, well, you're a lawyer, so I know you have something you want to say. That would be true, and my parents are ministers, so I really have stuff I want to say. I'm just so proud to be a part of this community. You mentioned that the college was formed or developed in 1933 as the first public college in the state of Florida. That happened here, right here in West Palm Beach. In fact, we still operate out of that very building right next to Dreyfus and the Kravis Center. I'm very proud of the work that we're doing here within the city of West Palm Beach. I feel that we have just a golden opportunity while the entire county is a part of our territory. We serve over 40,000 students with 5 different locations. As the largest city within our county, there's so many cool things that we get an opportunity to do. One thing I'm really proud of is the partnership that we have with Stephen Ross. I see Gopal here today. And the fact that we're able to offer the opportunity to the high schools right here within West Palm Beach for a credential past high school through a scholarship program and being a part of the Ross Scholars. What you maybe didn't know is that this program also allows us to do things as early as middle school. So we have residents within your community at Bear Lakes and at Roosevelt Middle School that are starting with us as college students because of the opportunities that were created through the Ross Scholars. So no, it's not just an opportunity for high school students, but also for college students as well. I mean, for middle school students as well, to go ahead and start college. I'd also like to say that I'm excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, that as West Palm Beach grows, I think there are opportunities for the college to grow as well. And certainly know that there are programs that you're interested in starting right within your city, that we're here to be your partners, because we understand that as with the growth and so many different people coming into our community, that we have a commitment to folks who are already here. About 75% of our students are the first in their families to go to college, and about 80% of them stay here once they graduate. So those are your residents, and that I want you to know we're ready to serve them. And then before I take my seat, I also want you to know I'm very much engaged with Rise Coleman Park, and that I have a real commitment to ensuring that we create opportunities for housing and economic development. I serve as the chair of that group, and that we are actively looking for opportunities to create housing for your residents right here in West Palm Beach. So know that my next meeting tonight is to chair the RISE board meeting, where we'll be talking about ways that we can provide affordable housing, because I know that's so important to the mayor, for our residents right here within your district, Commissioner Ward, because we have a commitment to ensuring that all boats rise with the great development that you're providing here within our community. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be recognized. Know that I personally, as well as the college, we're always here to serve and support. And I can't think of a better way to end the last day of Women's History Month, and then to be recognized by yourself, Mayor, as well as the commission here in the city of West Palm Beach. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for all you do. No, that's all right, that's all right. Okay, we will now turn to consent calendar, items 7.1 through 7.12. Commissioners, any comments on consent? 7.1 through 7.12. If there are none, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the items on consent.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 8.1, resolution number 54-25, declaring an approximately 55-acre site south of Roebuck Road to be surplus and not needed for city purposes, and approving a term sheet with Related Southeast LLC, Related Ross, for development of the property for a school. Mr. Fana?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Armando Fana, Assistant City Administrator. So let me start with talking about how we got here, why we're here, and the purpose of this resolution. And let me start that by saying we're not here. The purpose is not to approve a final sales agreement. Why we are here is the purpose is to declare a city property as surplus, discuss a term sheet for future negotiations, and for additional due diligence that is needed to look at the site, and then go over how this effort is going to support both public and private education. So the property itself, it is adjacent to the Florida Turnpike, right off of Roebuck Road. It's close to our ECR, which is just to the north of there. The total acreage is about 316 acres. The area that we're looking at for a potential school development is the very bottom 55 or so acres, and that'll have to be adjusted depending on what the site plan requires. But we're looking at basically 1/4 of the property. There's existing 10 well fields in the northern section of the property that are used for what we call the western well field right now, where we draw water from when we need it from the wells. We have an eastern well field and a western well field. So there's significant infrastructure there already. And I'll talk a little bit later about there's additional restrictions that are on this lower portion of the property as well for future development of well sites. So this isn't a property that we ever thought about putting out there for any kind of large development. You know, you'll see there's houses to the west and to the east there, and there's also a school near Jog Road, but this was never the intention that this entire site would be potentially developed. Matter of fact, we never really considered any of this site to be developed. So how do we get to this point? The city was approached by Related Ross for the potential of looking at where can we look at a private school provider within the city of West Palm Beach to serve the demands that are there right now for private schools. I think it's a well-established and well-documented fact that there is a lack of private school capacity in this county and particularly in this city. We have an influx of individuals and families that are moving here from the Northeast and other parts of the United States that are finding it very difficult to find educational opportunities, especially in the private side. There's also a need to enhance public sector opportunities for education. And so this opportunity that was presented to us combines both getting that opportunity to get more private educational capacity, but also improving our public schools. So it was a fairly unique opportunity that was presented to us. In terms of the site itself, there really wasn't any other site that the city has site control over that could accommodate a K through 12 school. This is the only site we have that has potential for that. You need approximately 35 acres to establish a K through 12 school, including athletic fields and so forth. So there was nothing even close. This is the only thing that could be close. The only other consideration was the property north of there, which is part of the ECR. But then again, that site is going to be part of that site is going to be developed in the future for a public service. Excuse me, public like a fire and police training facility. So, and we also have the ECR there. So I don't think many people want to develop next to a sewage treatment plant. So that was really not a consideration. This was the only other site. The other thing is we had to establish some broad terms and conditions that we're going to negotiate from, and then give time for due diligence to identify the barriers to development on this site. And there are some significant ones. This is a raw site. It's a forested site. There's never been developed. So you're looking at not only the restrictions that we have because of the well fields in the northern site and some restrictions south of that as well, but also you're starting from scratch. You're having to build all the infrastructure. You're having to have an access road that then has to traverse through the restricted areas that the city already has established. So there's considerable barriers here to access and to develop. And then, of course, we had to consider what are the public benefits. As I mentioned already, we're going to be supporting public education, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in my presentation, help meet the demand for private education. And then some of the things we negotiated at a very high level as part of the term sheet are scholarship opportunities and then improvements to water infrastructure in the area as well, which I'll get into all those. So let's just talk about what the ordinance requires. So as per the city code, the first step is to declare a property as surplus and then select a method of disposition. Related has presented this idea to us and need the city to, attract. They're the best positioned organization. Actually, no organization has approached us on this, but they're the best positioned, a lot more better positioned than the city to attract top tier educational institutions. And also, obviously, they have the know-how, the knowledge on development of a site like this. And more importantly, they also have been a major partner in the Roosevelt Elementary School project that I'll get into as part of this presentation, which is a big part of what we're talking about today. So that's the method of disposition is going to be further negotiations with Related Ross because of all the issues I just mentioned previously. Let's talk a little bit about how we got to the price, or at least I would say the draft price. So in our code, any property valued at over $500,000 requires 2 appraisals. So as I mentioned, we have 55 acres here, but of the 55 acres, about 20 acres are further restricted from development. The northern portion of the 55 acres would be restricted to only green space, ball fields, and water retention. The reason for that is we wanted to leave some room in case we needed future expansion of well fields. You may recall months ago, our Director for Public Utilities presented to you a direction that the city wanted to go in and getting, we already got the permits, but in getting access to fluorid wells that would help diversify our water system. This is a potential site in the future that we would look to have additional wells for the fluorid well. We're talking a decade down the road. But we wanted to at least save 20 acres in case we needed additional capacity, additional room. The good thing is the fluorid well footprint for those types of wells is fairly small, so we feel confident that the 20 acres could accommodate it if we needed it, and having ball fields or green space will help us to be able to utilize that space if needed. So this is a significant factor in determining what the potential market value was. You also had other limiting factors, such as the biggest one is you're restricted to a school use. The city would have put this out and said you can develop whatever you want on it, and it's open to the highest best use. You'd have a different valuation that would come out of this, but we are restricting it strictly to K through 12 educational use. You have the 20 acres that can't be developed. You have the site restrictions in terms of even access to and from the site that have to be established. You have the raw land that I mentioned. There's also a contribution that I'll talk about that needs to be made for improving our water infrastructure in that area. So there's a lot of limiting factors, and there was 2 appraisals that were done as is required by the code, one by the city and one by Related Ross. And as per the code, you take the 2 appraisals, you average them to come up with what the final price is. You can actually even reduce it further to 15% of that, but we're not suggesting that here. We just took the average of the 2. Ironically, the one from Related Ross came up much higher than the city appraisal. So the final cost of averaging the 2 was $6.5 million. If we were to do an update to that, we're asking for actually a waiver of the 6-month. You have to have an appraisal within 6 months, according to the code. We're asking for a waiver for that because these appraisals, both of them, are more than 6 months old. I'm not stuck on that. I don't think the evaluation has increased a whole lot over the past year on a property like this. First off, it's very difficult to even determine a value for a site like this just for a school use. But there's certainly the availability and the opportunity to do an updated appraisal later if we wanted to. Both parties have agreed that that could be done later. I don't anticipate we'd see a big change in the value, but it's worth seeing. We may see a decrease, so that's the other danger in there. Before I go on, any comments or questions regarding the actual appraisal and the appraisal process?
Commissioner Ward, President Ward.
You mentioned, thank you, Mayor. You mentioned specifically that the appraisal was based upon the use for a school, but I obviously, reading the text, there's the potential of development in the form of affordable housing. So did that play a role in the valuation as well?
That actually came about a little bit later. Now, that would also be restricted because you'd have income restrictions. This would be affordable workforce housing, 100% of it, so it would be restricted to the limitations on the income levels for those households and limitations that it would be for school faculty. Whether we get to that depends on what the due diligence looks like, and I think we would get into much more of the details of what that would look like in terms of a final agreement, which would come back to the City Commission. I'll talk about the process going forward. But those discussions came after the appraisal as a potential, if there is any land left over, and if there's an opportunity to do so. I think it would be good to be able to house faculty there, so that's actually reducing the amount of traffic potentially. But that's for future negotiations, and that may adjust the price as well.
Commissioner Fox.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, when you talk about the 55 acres and you said 20 will not be developed because we might need them back at some point. Are we buying them back, or how would that work if we needed them back?
No, so we would have a, what is it called?
Easement?
Reverter?
No, not a reverter. We would have a,
License,
oh
easement?
God, sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. Huh? So to be able to access the site for our
Easement.
easement, I'm sorry, yes,
Easement.
I didn't hear you. Right. So we'd have an easement filed or something similar to an easement to allow the city to be able to access the site for those purposes. But they would have a restriction on developing on that site because of that.
Okay, you can proceed. Oh, okay. Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Mr. Fana, you mentioned that the two appraisals came in vastly different. Can you just talk a little bit more about why that is?
You know, it's hard to say. We use two different providers, obviously. The valuations on the actual, what they thought there was a market value wasn't as significant as what it ended up being after you deduct the deductions that were made for some of the limiting conditions. So for example, it was about $20 million minus the atypical cost associated with development on the related appraisal, and for ours, it was about $15 million. So yeah, we're off $5 million, but it was even more when they actually did the deductions for things that are required to prepare the site and some of the limiting factors. So, you know, it's hard to say. I think some of it is difficult to appraise a property that is specific for this type of use. You know, a golf course is another example of something that's very hard to appraise. So, you know, there may be a chance to do some other appraisals just to get a closer valuation. But the good thing is the related one came up much higher.
Yes.
Thank you. And so when you're talking about the limiting uses of it, so I know that, you know, we've received some communication from folks who heard about this or read about it in the paper, and I just want to make sure that, you know, we're clear that just a private developer couldn't put whatever they want there, that there is limited uses of what can be built on this site.
Yes, 100%. Just limiting it to a school, even to affordable housing, having those deed restrictions or use restrictions on there have a considerable impact on the value. I mean, even if, let's say we were developing the site strictly for affordable housing and that was part of the use restrictions or deed restrictions, that would be, even that by itself would be a significant valuation difference. When you're talking about a school, that's such a limiting factor on what you can develop. So yes, as I mentioned before, if we were to open it up to any kind of development, which we wouldn't anyway, because we were approached for this specific type of public benefit, then that would have been a totally different valuation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Warren.
Thank you. Mr. Fana, I have a lot of questions that I think I'm hoping that you may be able to answer as you continue in
Okay.
your presentation. but to just stay focused on the things that you've already addressed. Talking originally about the valuations and the difference in them and the fact that it has been over a year, and your professional opinion, your expert opinion, you're saying that you don't feel that it would be beneficial to do an additional appraisal at this time, considering all of the things that have happened in the market.
Well, let me clarify that. I don't know if it wouldn't be beneficial. It's an unknown. If you look at commercial values over the past year, the latest statistics I recall, we've had like somewhere between a 7 and 10% increase in commercial valuation in the, kind of the West Palm Beach general area, maybe a little bit more than that for residential. But for a school site, it's such an unknown factor. There's a lot of limiting factors, as I mentioned in this. I anticipate it would be a little bit higher, but I can't guarantee it.
Follow up, Mayor?
Yes.
So that's part of what my question is as well, is like, how did we end up with that? We determined that the best use was going to be for a school site, even though that was the presentation or what was asked. When we look at the amount of property that is available, when we look at this location, what made this be recommendable that we move forward with a private school?
Well, honestly, this is a site that, at least since I've been here, nobody's approached the city on development, but I've heard that there in the past there was approaches for development, but it was for the entire site, and because of the restrictions, because of the water infrastructure that was already there, it's never been considered as a potential site for development. The only reason we considered it here was because a proposal was made for a very small portion of the site and for a specific need that was identified in the community, or actually really county-wide, for capacity for private schools as we've had this influx of folks coming in. I don't think it would be appropriate for a housing site generally. I think you'd probably see more opposition to that as well from the surrounding community because of traffic issues, or you'd have to have a lot more access to the site, more roads being built than you would potentially for a school. So I think this probably has the softest footprint of other potential uses there, and it's fulfilling a need in the community. And more importantly, the proceeds, as I'll mention later, are going to go towards the public schools, which the partner that has come to us, Related Ross, has been integral in that project, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation.
Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Follow-up question. At the beginning of their presentation, you mentioned this is not the final sale, that this is for future negotiation. I was just curious then, and maybe this is for our city attorney, then in future negotiation, might we be able to have a discussion on adding in another appraisal that was mentioned and not waiving the appraisal process?
You do have the right to request additional appraisals in the future.
But would we need to do that now or in the negotiation process?
You could do that now. I mean,
You can, it's just, I was going to look at the resolution quickly to see if we're requesting a waiver now. If that provision is included in your resolution, we would approve the resolution without waiving.
Right.
So that could go forward in the future.
correct.
Thank you.
You would just take that out of the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Warren.
I've seen different methods of approaching various situations, and is there a reason why we would not consider doing an ITN or an RFP or something that would allow for people to look at this project, look at the property, and for the city to consider the options that are available?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the reasons is we were approached by Related Ross with the need, right? They were very adamant about how this was an issue in the community, how we needed to approach, or we need to find, if we can find capacity, is there anywhere in the city where this could potentially happen? The second thing is, the city just doesn't really have the know-all and capacity to start looking at evaluating schools, trying to attract top-tier educational institutions, whereas somebody like Related Ross can do that. They have a national presence. They know the players in that arena, whereas we don't. And again, they are part of the Roosevelt Elementary project, which is all part of this kind of holistic approach on this particular project. So there's a number of factors. Could we have put it out? Yes. Would it have taken a couple of years probably to get through the process and evaluate everything? That's also reality. So and the Roosevelt Elementary School is something we want to do fairly soon. There's been dollars secured through state appropriations. There's been commitments made by the school district, so I don't know if we wanted to wait another 2 to 3 years for something else to materialize, or for us to evaluate and go out with an ITB on something that we didn't even propose, you know.
And also, Roosevelt Elementary is in dire need of improvement now. The sooner we can get monies into that project, the better, because that school will benefit. It's a school that needs significant resources invested, and time is of the essence, I believe. Okay, can he continue with his presentation, and we'll obviously take other questions as we move on.
Okay, so moving on some of the other terms, there was an additional contribution. Again, this kind of all goes into the evaluation of $1.5 million that would be used to construct a future pump station or water tank. You know, occasionally we'll have some issues with water pressure on some of the western communities, and so this, you know, adding a school, not that it wouldn't really make a big difference on that, but it may make a little bit of a difference, and so this was part of the negotiation was, can we get some investments in the water infrastructure out west so that we can improve the water pressure in that area. So that's part of it. The initial step would be a $100,000 deposit, which then would execute the term sheet and would begin the 6-month due diligence process. And to the mayor's point, the mayor has greatly reduced the due diligence time. I mean, there was, in the initial discussions, was a year, more than a year, because again, this is a very difficult site to develop. Because there's some urgency at getting the funding for Roosevelt Elementary, this due diligence time has been significantly reduced. So they'll have to get on their horse really quickly and begin the process of looking at this property and what are the limitations and how difficult is it going to be to develop. Again, it's raw land. You're talking, it's a significant project to get off the ground, and they've got to be able to attract a top-tier school that will willing to do that and willing to develop it and willing to invest the amount of money needed in order to bring this opportunity to fruition. Some other things that we've had in there is up to 20 scholarships for the private school for West Palm Beach children, and the details of those scholarships haven't been worked out. That would be part of the final negotiation, but certainly, you know, I would recommend that we look at Title IV schools or schools that are in areas that are challenging, that we look at where it's educational attainment as opposed to maybe just athletics or something else. You know, we look at criteria that is going to attract the most children as possible that need the opportunity for a private school education in this case. Again, the proceeds are all going to go to the improvements in Roosevelt Elementary, which I'm going to get into shortly. And then during this due diligence period, the city is going to be working with Related Ross or whatever school they end up attracting or identifying on what the final purchase agreement terms and conditions would be. And those would come back to you prior to. Matter of fact, I think we had 2 readings. Is that correct, City Attorney? Yeah. So we'd have 2
Yes,
readings.
2 readings.
Yeah. So this is the first public hearing. I'm also going to recommend that we do at the 3-month period a workshop for the Mayor Commission workshop agenda item that would not only go over where we're at the 3-month mark, but also get more into detail on the Roosevelt project, which I'm going to touch upon. And then at the end, before we get to the end of the due diligence 6-month period, we would come back to you with a final agreement for 2 readings, assuming that a school comes to fruition. You know, this is not a done deal. There's a lot of work to be done here. So I've touched upon a little bit, as has the mayor, on the Roosevelt project. So there has been a long time discussion on improvements to Roosevelt Elementary, and it's been called Roosevelt Rising. And this is a partnership between the Palm Beach County School District, the City of West Palm Beach, and Related Together. And the focus of this opportunity for Roosevelt Elementary is 3 pillars: improving the physical environment, student programming, and then further development of faculty. And the school district has been part of these conversations. They're on board. As a matter of fact, you'll see there, they are investing $4 million into the total of a $12.5 million estimated budget for these improvements. A lot of those dollars are going towards physical improvements, but a lot of it is always as well going to programming. And as we get into that detail in a mayor commission workshop. You'll be able to visualize what some of the improvements are, what some of the curriculum improvements are going to be as well. And representatives from later here, and I'll ask them to come up in a minute, but they may be able to even expound a little bit upon what is there. But as you can see, if you look at what the gap is, there's already been a commitment from the school district of the $4 million related together of $1 million. There's been a small appropriation from the state. I believe Related Ross is trying to get additional appropriations from the state. But the delta, and this is not by design, but the delta is very similar to what we end up getting from the sale of the proceeds from this property. So it fills in the delta that existed for the improvements to Roosevelt Elementary. You know, if the appraisal comes in higher later and we get more money, then great. You know, that may be something we can use for something else, or maybe there's additional improvements to Roosevelt that we can find. But it ends up being the amount that we need.
We do have a question. President Ward?
Yes.
You're speaking about like a specific amount needed, so are we going to go into what exactly that plan is, or what that 12.5 is being used for?
Yeah, I'll ask the folks from Related to come up and give a little more detail on that, but I think that could be better fleshed out in a specific workshop for that. But as I said, I believe, and I'm kind of going off the top of my head, but around 9.5 million or so is physical improvements, and then the rest is going into programming improvements, for curriculum improvements, for testing out new learning methodologies. So there's additional flexibilities that I think the school board is working with us on to allow for kind of a little bit out of the box from what you would normally see. But the main thrust of it is the physical improvements, because the school is in pretty poor condition. So what are the next steps here? As I mentioned, we have the 6 months of the due diligence for the site conditions. Surveying has to be done to determine the exact location of where the footprint would be for the school. Financing has to be identified. The biggest thing is identifying an interested school. So again, we're just in the beginning. We're in the baby stages here. And once those things begin to get ironed out, we would negotiate the final terms and conditions for a potential purchase. There needs to be zoning changes. It's zone utilities right now, so we'd have to rezone at least that portion of the property to allow for the school use. And that would have to come to City Commission as well. And then, of course, we'd be returning to the Commission, as I mentioned, for 2 additional hearings on the final purchase. So with that, I'm going to ask Gopal Rajagowda from Related Ross to come up and discuss what their role is and their commitment to the project. I think it's important to hear from them as well.
Before Gopal comes up, are there any questions for Mr. Fana? Commissioner Fox?
And I'll be taking questions after.
Okay, but let's see if she has any questions now when it's fresh.
Thank you so much. You mentioned 1.5 million that would go towards new water tank and pump station, but you also talked about that we would need new access roads and infrastructure, clearing the land, those kinds of things. Who is paying for that?
That would be all on the school. So the property is provided as is.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you. You mentioned that we reduced the due diligence time down to 6 months, and again, that this is the negotiation phase. So what happens to the land if at the end of 6 months, there's not a school that has committed to build on this property?
Well, then the decision would have to be made whether to extend that period of due diligence time or decide that the interest isn't there.
Well, the question is whether they were still willing to close the deal, even without identifying a school.
Well, that's true,
which is
too.
their option. If they want to pay for the property, again, knowing that the use is limited to a school, and hold on to it until they find a school, that's fine.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor. Yes, they could just buy it outright with the limitations. Everything that would be negotiated that is part of this term sheet, along with other provisions that we negotiate in the next 6 months, they'd have to live with those. So.
But if they do close, the money comes to us.
Correct, and it would go to Roosevelt anyway.
Goes to Roosevelt. Okay. President Ward?
But if you need to extend the term sheet, you have to come back to this body, correct? There's nothing within the term sheet that states it can be amended?
Well, part of the term sheet is to allow a license agreement for them to use the property for the 6-month diligence period. So if there is a extension of that time, I'm going to, yeah, it would come back to you.
Yeah, I believe it would have to come back. And if it doesn't, it might be a very limited time where we could extend it.
Actually, no,
but-
license agreements do not have to be approved by the board. I take that back. I apologize. We would be able to internally decide whether or not to extend the due diligence period.
Correct, based upon the term sheet, though. They would be moving forward with the purchase, and so in that regard,
We're not moving, you wouldn't move forward with a purchase and sale. A purchase and sale agreement would come to the body for
Right.
sure.
That
But
has
if
to
the
come.
period of time, let's say for the sake of discussion, they were doing some environmental work and the environmental review wasn't done within 6 months and they needed 2 more weeks, it would be up to, generally speaking, the city staff to say, yeah, we can extend the license agreement that allows you a due diligence period for 2 more weeks, if that makes sense. But it doesn't create a purchase and sale agreement. It's something separate that will come to you for sure.
Okay, any other, okay, we can have, Gopal come up. Mr. Rajagata.
Thank you, Armando, for the concise presentation, and good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you so much for considering this important transaction, in my opinion. I just wanted to focus on and emphasize the major points of this transaction. I think Armando did a great job, but let me try to go through the points that are important to note. So number one, the primary goals of this acquisition were first and foremost, to fund the Roosevelt Elementary Public School initiative, and B, to secure land for another private school option in West Palm Beach. Workforce housing came up, and I know that's been a sensitive topic. It was never the intent for this to be developed as a workforce housing development. We solely wanted the option, and schools we've talked to wanted the option to add a workforce housing component intended for teachers and staff, and that is only if there is actually availability of land to be able to do that on the site, and again, that would be up to a potential future school. Number two, as the mayor said, the sale was specifically asked to be expedited over the 6-month period to make the funding immediately available for Roosevelt Elementary, which is currently struggling. It's an F-rated school and urgently needs financial support immediately. Number three, there's been a lot of questions around the appraisals I see. We are 100% open and happy to refresh the appraisals. I know they're a little bit old, to ensure that this sale occurs at fair market value. So if that's important to you all, we are 100% okay with refreshing our appraisal. It shouldn't take very long. And as Armando said, I don't really think it's going to affect the value. Number four, our intent is to identify a third-party school operator within the next 3 to 5 years. We currently don't have an operator for the site, but I believe we're well-positioned based on our relationships with corporations and high-level schools across the country with a site in hand to be able to market West Palm Beach as a destination for a world-class public school. Again, we are not in the education business, and we are not planning on either operating or developing this school. Lastly, I want to emphasize that Related Ross does not plan to develop the site for financial gain, and I want to make that very clear. This is a need. There are 2 needs in this community. One is for a public school, for Roosevelt Elementary. We've identified that need through our nonprofit. And number 2, we've identified a need for a private school, ultimately, as this community grows in large part due to the major migration we're seeing here in the Class A office market and the demographic and the type of employees that are coming down here who may want to have a private school. So again, the focus is on strengthening a local public school and expanding educational options in West Palm Beach. So I know Armando did a great job with those points, but I just want to make sure to get those 5 points across.
President Ward.
thank you. So in the event, you mentioned 3 to 5 years, so you've got a 6-month due diligence period where you're going to figure out if it's feasible to even build a school and find everything out, but you don't intend on finding an operator for at least 3 years.
It's hard to say. One of the things we've figured out as we've talked to operators over the last few years is without a site in hand, it's very hard to market. We have received quite a bit of interest from some world-class brands. I sort of left it at 3 to 5 years because that's sort of my impression of where it's going to land, but the timeline is unknown. As the mayor pointed out earlier, the intent here would be to close immediately within that 6-month period. And then again, the limitations on the site would be for a K through 12 school. So timeline is TBD on that, but assuming that we get through due diligence, we would close with the site in hand with the intent for the site to be developed for a future school use.
And by closing, you mean paying the city? And then
Paying
we would have
the full
funds to pay it over
6.6
to-
million as it is today, yeah, yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Thank you. When I look at some of the other private schools that we have in the area, like the Benjamin School and King's Academy, and their scholarship process, Benjamin School, approximately 22% of their students have financial assistance, and King's Academy, approximately 12% of their students receive financial assistance, totaling 209 students at King's Academy that receive a subsidy. And what we're anticipating for this property in this school, on the agenda, it says 10 annual scholarships, and then on Mr. Fauna's presentation, it said 20. And I'm just curious as to the metrics that was used to determine the number of scholarships that would be provided when you're talking about K through 12. That's a lot of grade levels, and the number seems relatively low in comparison to what I can anticipate would be the student body.
Yeah, great question. The number is 20 currently in the term sheet, and this was a bit of back and forth with the mayor and Armando. We are open. I mean, of course, we're not the operator of this school, so I can't really speak to how a school would react to this. My impression was it would be 20 scholarships per year, so those 20 scholarships would apply for the full 4 years of school. If that is a topic that you all would like us to revisit and consider, more scholarships, we're open-minded to that. I'd have to do a little bit of research and discussing kind of what the limitation is on the number of scholarships. Also, there's probably a lot of questions in the details. Are they full scholarships? Are they partial scholarships? Mm-hmm. Again, we're not really in the school business, so we'd have to figure out with other school operators what would be appropriate for a school to be able to provide in terms of scholarships and also still be economically viable.
And that's a detail that could be included in the actual purchase and sell agreement. Again, this is just a term sheet, so we can move toward the negotiation of a purchase and sell agreement. But those are details that could be hammered out. I'm not sure they need to be resolved this evening. You got a follow-up?
Yes, Mayor, thank you for that, because those are just very important details that I think would be important
Absolutely.
to bring back. So I want to express that openly in the beginning, so that as we continue to move further, if this does move further, that these are not details that we're working out at the last minute, and that we all have the opportunity to go through them, because I'm not an expert on determining the ratio of the student body and who gets what scholarship and how much that is, and whether or not they're athletic or academic or any of those things. But I do believe that it's important for us to be intentional from the beginning of this, and as we continue to progress, should this move forward.
It's an important point that should certainly be in the purchase and sale agreement for sure.
And like Title I schools being a factor, so there, I think, are different things that would be very important.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you so much. I agree. I wanted to talk about the scholarships as well, and I'm pleased to hear you say that the minimum of 20 scholarships is what's been discussed in the term sheet. I'd like to see that, of course, fleshed out in final negotiations, but I'd really like for that to be the minimum, and would really prefer to see somewhere in the number of 25 or 30 scholarships, as well as when we're talking about the details, seeing that these are going to West Palm Beach families as well.
Yeah, that was the intent, West Palm
Okay.
Beach. Yeah.
Great.
President Ward?
Thank you. And I don't know if this is a question for you or Armando, but I know in the term sheet it does say eligible city residents, but it's not defined. So what's an eligible city resident?
Do you want
So you're right, it's not defined. That would be part of the negotiations for the final term sheet. And just a further comment on the scholarships. I think, we were looking at a number, and there is no magic number. But Commissioner Warren, you kind of made a point there I think we need to do a little further research on for the final term sheet. I think it needs to be a percentage of the enrollment. There's probably a percentage that is sort of standard, I would think, in some of these private schools. So that probably is a better way of looking at it as opposed to a strict number. But yes, we would define what eligibility is, and my personal preference would be that we would take from schools that have the greatest need. But, that's up for the commission to debate and decide, and that may be one of the discussion points we can have at the mayor-commission workshop in 3 months.
And again, the purchase and sale agreement comes back to this body for final approval. So,
Correct. Twice.
Twice. So you'll have to be comfortable with that. President Ward.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up on that. I mean, I think that to Commissioner Warren's point, maybe having a comparable, Rosarian's right down the street, the Green School's right down the street, saying it, like, we could, part of this workshop is that due diligence of figuring out, hey, what is the standard that we're looking at in this area for other competing private schools? What can they budget? Because, yeah, pulling out 20, I thought the same thing. I was like, was 20 a lot? 20 per year? Is that too? I just don't know. And so to come tonight and trying to make this decision, I know we need more schools. I know all of our schools in West Palm Beach need to be better. I know we need more private schools for their alternatives. So I know the need. The haste upon which we're here is what I'm a little bit concerned with, because there's just so many unanswered questions. We're not making a decision tonight. It's to move forward, not enter a purchase and sale agreement, which makes me more comfortable. But there's just so many questions that I feel that residents want to know, that we would want to know before getting 6 months is a short period of time. And I understand the need, but I want to know what that money is going towards with Roosevelt. If it's so caveated as that why we're rushing this, I just need to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, I think part of that, I wouldn't say we're rushing it necessarily, because to get to this point, there's been a significant amount of time, at least to get these broad terms and conditions in place. So it was just so we're not coming completely cold with nothing and just asking you to surplus a property without any parameters around it. This is I think, a pretty solid starting point. There's been good points that I've mentioned here, such as the scholarships and how we can determine that then we can flesh out over the next few months.
Commissioner Fox.
Thank you so much. Armando, I wonder, I know you heard, we have received several calls and emails from residents that were concerned about the timeline, and I understand that concern, but I also understand the need for schools. I'm very excited to have the improvements that are needed in Roosevelt, and I'd like to accelerate that process. But you mentioned several kind of points, 3 months we're going to have a workshop, the 6 months for the due diligence. Can you just go over that a little bit more, just so that we have it on the record again, that this is not something that nothing's really happening tonight except that we're allowing the due diligence period to start so that they can decide whether or not that property is even going to be capable of having a school, and then everything else that comes after that will come back to us, so that there are many other opportunities to hear from residents, for them to voice any concerns going forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So again, we have, if this body approves the resolution, we then would execute the term sheet, and then that would begin the 6-month ticking of the clock. Within 3 months, I'm proposing, and I think the mayor and city administrator agree, that within 3 months, we would do a mayor commission workshop to go over where we are in the process, to go over in much more detail the Roosevelt Rising project. And then even before the 6 months is over, if there's something significant that comes up, we can come to you either individually or do another public meeting to discuss those things. But we would anticipate to come to you with a final agreement, should that materialize, with what those terms and conditions are well ahead of time, so you have a chance to digest it, as does the public, and then there'll be 2 readings of that. So there'll be plenty of time. And again, I want to stress, because I think some of the chatter has been the city putting this property out without any discussions or opportunities for others, but we're talking about a K-9 school. We're not talking about putting a property out just for any kind of development. It's strictly for this purpose, and the proceeds are strictly going to be used for the Roosevelt Elementary School program, which Related Ross is a big part of.
Commissioner Warren.
Thank you. I really appreciate where you're speaking about Roosevelt Elementary being a beneficiary. I'm just looking forward to more details about that and what that actually means so
Absolutely.
that people in the community understand and they can express whether or not they support or oppose the way that we are approaching this.
Yeah, we're putting a large investment into the overall budget. So the city will definitely be at the table, will definitely be looking at what are the terms and conditions of that, because it is a significant contribution from the city, so we want to see the results.
Any other questions for Mr. Fana or for Mr. Rajagata? President Ward?
I just have a final comment because I don't want it to go unsaid. And Commissioner Fox, you kind of brought it up, but there have been so many emails. I mean, every time I've opened my phone, it has been say no, vote no. And I feel, one, that we have a huge body that's participating, which is exciting, that people are paying attention to what we're doing, and that maybe we've missed the mark on communication. And because I feel like most people here, we do need more schools. We do need to bring in more and become more competitive within Palm Beach County. We have talked about this for a while. There are questions that we aren't able to answer residents, and I just want to stress that is I don't like not being able to answer residents when they're asking questions when something comes out in the Post and we don't have all that information. And clearly we don't, because we're part of that due diligence perspective, and we can always look back and say maybe we could have done it better. But I just want to address the residents who I'm sure they emailed my colleagues as well, that I read every single one of them. I'm not going to respond to every single one of them, but I understand your concerns, and I just wanted to say I realize that, and this is not final decision tonight, and I know you've said that multiple times, but I just feel, given how many emails we've received with no support and only vote no, it shouldn't be not addressed tonight.
Yeah, you have a article that came out in the local newspaper that gets distributed by folks without knowing all the facts. It's a little difficult to get through a broad term sheet like this when you're looking at, potentially thousands of people weighing in for or against. I think now is when that process begins. We have at least a framework of what we're looking for, because the problem is you go out and then everybody starts, well, we want housing, we want a zoo. This is strictly for a K-9 school for a particular purpose that was brought to us, so we can have the discussion now on that proposal, because we're not open to anything else. That is the only thing that's going to be developed here, potentially.
And this property had not been made available for any other, it's not like the city's intent to put this property out to sell it. We didn't. This is a specific opportunity presented to us. I think it's a win-win. Are there details to be worked out? Absolutely. This is the first step in a process. This is not a final decision. This is a first step in the process. It allows them to conduct their due diligence. It allows us to get more education on Roosevelt Elementary and to negotiate the terms of a purchase and sale agreement, which will come back to this body. During that time, whatever questions the community may have, they could direct to us. We could try to address those in private emails if you want, or in workshop discussions, or whatever. But we're not. The door is not closing on the public to weigh in on this. This is a first step in a process, and I think it's a process that will lead to a very fine result for a significant educational institution in our city, where we can make a significant investment in that school, an elementary school that will be a tremendous benefit to generations of kids. Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. I just wanted to emphasize that point as well, is that I was extremely pleased to see that this would generate guaranteed funding for Roosevelt Elementary, and I think that that is a big part of this project and why I'd like to see this move forward tonight. However, I would like, and I think we discussed that maybe it would be in the motion tonight, and if the applicant is agreeable to not waive the appraisal process so that we can get updated appraisals.
Yeah, right, you can do that as part of the resolution.
Yeah, so when you make your motion, just move to approve resolution number
We still have public comment.
5425, excluding section 4.
Okay, we won't get to that point. President Ward, you had your hand up?
I'm putting you on the spot, Gopal. If the appraisals come back with a less, a lower average, will you continue to stay at the higher price?
Now you're negotiating with me, right? Yes, we'll be okay with the higher number, yes. As Armando said, I mean, I felt like I negotiated against myself because our number was much higher than the city appraisal, but it was due to the details of what was deducted from the actual number. So I think we feel pretty confident the numbers will land where they are, but if it comes in lower, we'll be happy to stay at the higher number.
And we're allowed to do that procedurally?
We will include that in part of the negotiations.
Yeah, all you have to say is that the minimum price will be $6.6 million. Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you weren't finished yet? Go ahead,
I'm good,
Armando.
thanks.
Mayor, I believe, do you have any questions or comments? I mean, I'm sorry. Do we have any
I think we
comments
have
from the
any
public?
cards, right? We have any cards?
Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to approve resolution number 54-25 with the caveat that we are removing the waiver of the timing requirement for the appraisals and a purchase price of no less than 625 in the event the appraisals come back lower.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9.1, public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 5126-25, a city-initiated text amendment to Chapter 94, Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 3, Residential Districts, Section 94-85, Special Exception Standards for Historic Residential Districts, and Section 94-86, Historic Residential District Definitions, to modify the language giving the Historic Preservation Board additional authority to grant special dimensional standard exemptions for contributing shotgun houses within the historic Northwest neighborhood.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission. My name is Leslie Olson. I'm principal of District Planning Group, and I'm here tonight representing the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency in a project that we have been working on for a little bit now. And I'd like to give you a little bit of background on it to explain why we're here tonight talking about historic preservation regulations. So the City of West Palm Beach, CRA, is looking to advance two city goals. One, affordable and workforce housing, and number two, historic preservation. Usually those don't integrate very well. Historic districts actually usually tend to appreciate much faster than other residential areas because people really like living in them. And so they are by nature not very affordable for the most part. But what the CRA has done is they have purchased a piece of property, a single property, with 6 shotgun houses on it. And in historic preservation parlance, a shotgun house is kind of like your original tiny house. It is a very, very small, very narrow, but long home that was inherently affordable when it was built. They were very prevalent in the first part of the 20th century. This particular parcel has 6 of them on it. And in many cases, in historic preservation, when you're looking back on what are the cute things that used to get built that you can't build anymore under your current zoning, this would definitely be one of those. And when the CRA wanted to evaluate the possibility of creating these, rehabilitating these homes that are in really pretty bad shape right now, rehabilitating them and putting them back on the market for affordable housing so that people can live in these great historic districts, people with regular jobs. They realized, as our team was assembled, that there's no way to subdivide so that each one of these future owners can own their own home. You could do a condominium where they would just own the structure, but then they'd have to create an HOA, among 6 properties to manage the common area. But those types of things are expensive. It's expensive to run an HOA, and it's complex. It's complex to run an HOA, especially when you've only got 6 people to do it. So it was decided that the most efficient way for people to keep this affordable over the long run was to subdivide. But there is no existing zoning district that would allow you to subdivide these properties. I'm going to have to do it this way. Oh, dear. There is no existing zoning district in the city of West Palm Beach that would allow you to subdivide something into something this small. Furthermore, we evaluated the historic preservation ordinance to see if there were some special exceptions that the Historic Preservation Board could grant. Unfortunately, the regulations were sensibly written to consider special exceptions for things that people wanted to build, whether it's new construction or an addition on a historic home. Those are the types of special exceptions that are contemplated in your adopted historic preservation ordinance. So, in order to give the Historic Preservation Board the authority to contemplate something where it's, I'm not used to this, where you have an appropriate housing type, which is a designated historic principal dwelling. And you shouldn't separate them. You shouldn't put them on bigger lots because that wouldn't be an appropriate historic context. But you don't want to create a standard in which everybody's going to be coming and asking for smaller lots. We worked very closely with your excellent staff to create limitations for the applicability, where all the structures must be contributing historic structures in the shotgun architectural style. All structures must be principal dwellings if they're going to be subdivided. It must minimize nonconformities to the greatest extent feasible. The subdivided lots must provide frontage on a city street, and they must include 1 single-family residence after it's platted. And so those special exceptions, if those limitations are met, could include lot area, lot width, setbacks, lot coverage, and floor area ratio. And this would be something that the Historic Preservation Board would grant if it is appropriate in that historic district and it meets the standards. That is the extent of this, and staff has done more analysis of where this could apply. At this time, it will only apply in the Northwest residential district, but Chris has a number of instances of where it could be applied, so you can look at that as well, but I'm happy to answer any questions now, and I remain available.
Any questions, discussion? Commissioner Fox?
Thank you so much. I'm excited to see this moving forward. I remember when we first were considering purchasing this property because it had been sitting empty, attracting, your words were pretty bad shape, and I think that means you hadn't actually seen what it looked like, because that's putting it mildly. It was really a detriment to the neighborhood. So I'm happy to see, I mean, essentially that if we were going to tear it down, which we couldn't because they were historic, but if we couldn't rehab them and we had to tear them down, it was zoned for basically a single family home. So rather than having 6 tiny homes that we could sell for affordable housing, we would only be able to build 1. So I'm very happy that we found a solution. I guess my question is just in terms of talking about it being so specific to the shotgun homes, because I mean, the idea of having smaller homes on some of the lots in that neighborhood, I feel like could really increase our affordable housing in other ways. But so you're saying this is only specific, I mean, I'm very supportive of this, but I would maybe at some point also support broadening it in some way, but this is only specific to the very few shotgun homes that are in that neighborhood.
Commissioner Fox, thank you. It's an excellent question. When we first drafted it, we did not limit it to shotguns, and we did not limit it to this particular district. I think that it's staff's intent to open the door very, very narrowly at this point to see how it goes, and then we can always remove those restrictions as we go forward. Of course, the decision is yours. But we feel comfortable from the CRA's perspective that if you would like to keep this limited in its applicability right now, that's fine. As someone with expertise in both historic preservation and land development code regulation drafting, I like the idea of opening it more because it encourages historic preservation when you can do more with your historic property. But you also will end up with people trying to push the envelope, and this is a way to limit that at this time.
Any other questions before we bring staff up? Okay. Thank you for that presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Chris Kimmerly, Senior Urban Designer. So just to, again, continue on the background context of this. So particularly to this specific project, it is 610 Douglas Avenue that the CRA purchased. It does have 6 primary structures on the site, and it is within the Northwest neighborhood. In today's zoning, this is a legal nonconformity. The lot exceeds its maximum density, so if this was built new today, we could only fit 2 units on it, not the 6 structures that are there today. It also exceeds lot coverage and setbacks, and because of these nonconformities, this would prohibit, in today's zoning, the subdivision, as it would further increase the nonconformities. Again, the goal of this text amendment is really to rehabilitate these 6 structures, meeting the Secretary of Interior standards for historic preservation, then to subdivide the 6 shotgun houses in order to facilitate fee simple home ownership of each structure. And then again, the language will provide the Historic Preservation Board the authority to grant these special exceptions, whether they be waivers or variances to the dimensional standards. This is the language specifically included. So to Leslie's point there, we did tailor it specifically to the historic Northwest and to the shotgun house typology. And again, this was done in an abundance of caution. We're aware of various shotgun houses throughout the district that could utilize this language. But we haven't quite studied what the implications would be across other smaller structures within the Northwest, but also other historic districts. So we wanted to tailor it specifically where we can find these shotgun houses. Again, with the DMP update that's ongoing as well, this is maybe another avenue of something we can look at in the future of how that applies broadly. Also included within that language, we do define what a shotgun house is. Again, further limiting and tailoring it to this specific type of architecture. And these are the sections here, again, that the Historic Preservation Board would be able to grant these exceptions to. So again, it's your minimum lot dimensions, your standard setbacks for the principal structure, other setbacks, and things like that. In terms of applicability across the district, staff has identified a handful of additional properties. So again, here you see where there are multiple shotgun houses, primary structures, contributing primary structures within a lot. And should they want to go this route as well to subdivide and then facilitate fee simple ownership, that is an option for many of these other properties as well. The Historic Preservation Board recommended approval for this, as did the Planning Board, and staff recommends approval based on the fact that this code change does meet all the amendment standards found in the code. Are there any other questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, we do have one card. Michael Cleveland.
Good evening. I'm sure none of you have ever lived in a shotgun house during the early 50s and 60s. There was something that transients from one area to another came down, lived in, worked, moved out. Of course, the landlord didn't give a crap about who lived in them. He just took the money and left. I'm not sure if you plan to tear these down or you want to renovate them, but they are certainly too small for any decent family to live in. So if you're going to renovate them, I would suggest that you make townhouses out of them, small, efficient townhouses, which would be very costly. You have to remember there are old structures and termites are in Florida everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's in the comment on this item. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 5126-25, amending Chapter 94, Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 3, Residential Districts, Section 94-85, Special Exception Standards for Historic Residential Districts, and Section 94-86, Historic Residential District Definitions.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, can you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number, hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ordinance number 5126-25, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of West Palm Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 94, Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 4, Residential Districts, Section 94-85, Special Exception Standards for Historic Residential Districts, and Section 94-86, Historic Residential District Definitions, to modify the language to give the Historic Preservation Board the authority to grant additional special dimensional standard exemptions for shotgun houses on parcels containing multiple contributing historic structures within the historic Northwest neighborhood, declaring these proposed zoning text amendments to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning and land development regulations of the city, providing a conflicts clause and a severability clause, providing an effective date, and for other purposes.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now moving to the quasi-judicial portion of the meeting. Commissioners, I need you to make your disclosures, please. And we'll begin with Commissioner Fox. Looks like she's ready.
Do we just do 10.1, or do we need to do 10.2?
Just 10.1, we'll get a motion to continue 10.2.
As to item 10.1, I have had ex parte communications with the applicant. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you. Commissioner Warren?
Thank you, Mayor. As to item 10.1, I have had ex parte communications with the applicant and the applicant's representative. I have not received written communications, not conducted an investigation, not made a site visit, not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
President Ward?
As to item 10.1, I have had ex parte communications with the applicant, representatives of the applicant, and residents of the neighborhood association. I have received written communications in the form of emails from the neighborhood association. I have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you. As to item 10.1, I have had ex parte communications with the applicant and the applicant's representatives. I have not received written communications. I've not conducted an investigation. I've not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, can you swear in all witnesses, please?
Would everyone wishing to speak on item 10.1 please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 10.1, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 5125-25 regarding a rezoning to change the zoning designation of approximately 1.45 acres located at 4906 North Flagler Drive for multifamily high-density residential to residential plan development, and Resolution number 51-25 regarding the development regulations and conditions for the Apogee residential planned development, and granting waivers of the zoning and land development regulations.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, Kevy DeFrank, Senior Planner with the Development Services Department. So as you stated, Mayor, this is the second reading of the subject agenda item, and there has been no changes to the subject agenda item. That concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, I do have one card. Angela Ogburn.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and share our community's concerns. Currently, developers are not required to provide written assurances to neighboring property owners. Verbal commitments are insufficient to ensure accountability. While the ordinance states that property owners and contractors must protect all neighboring properties and notify neighbors of construction activities, it lacks clear requirements for liability, compensation, and repair obligations in the event of damage. Given the scale of upcoming projects in the North Flagler District, specifically Northwood Harbor District, and their potential impact, I urge the city to strengthen protections and enforcement mechanisms. Specifically, I request that the city require written confirmation from developers seeking to build in Northwood Harbor community, ensuring their commitment to these responsibilities. These assurances should be secured both before appearing before the commission and again when applying for building permits, demonstrating good faith within building in a residential neighborhood. This letter of commitment should include a clear obligation that any damage to neighboring properties caused by construction will be fully repaired or compensated in a timely manner. A requirement for contractors to implement preventive measures, including dust control, vibration monitoring, and debris containment. A defined, accessible process for reporting damages and obtaining remediation without undue burden on affected homeowners. Written assurances that adjacent property owners will not bear any cost for repairs or damage mitigation. By requiring these commitments in writing, the city can ensure greater accountability and protection for residents. I appreciate your time and consideration in strengthening these safeguards for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that was the only card. Any other questions or comments? President Ward?
Just given that this has been a conversation with regards to the comments brought up by the Speaker Angela Ogburn right now, I just was wondering if staff, I knew you would get up out of your seat quickly, just respond to it. Thank you.
Rick Green, Development Services Director. We've recently had a couple meetings with the North Flagler Harbor Association, and one of the things I've told them is that we do have a requirement in place that any development with a value in excess of $2 million has to prepare what is known as a construction management plan. That construction management plan identifies where the construction workers are going to park, how they're going to access the site, and it's a whole array. That has to be submitted through engineering. In an effort to try to toughen up those policies, we had a meeting with Kevin Volbrick, with Armando maybe 3 weeks ago, and we talked about making that an actual permit requirement that would be submitted through our EPL process to engineering prior to the issuance of the building permit. Now they have to submit a report, but tying it to a permit would give it a little bit more teeth. Other things that developers typically do with adjoining properties is they do seismic monitors around the property to make sure that there's no vibration that's impacting it. I'm not an attorney, but I think requiring the city to monitor enforcement or liability of damage, I think that might be somewhat problematic, but I'm not an expert in that area. We try to do everything we can to monitor construction activities, monitor dust, traffic, access. Part of the construction management plan is also a maintenance of traffic plan that has to be submitted. So we do the best we can, and it's fairly extensive.
Follow-up, Mayor?
Yes.
And I don't know the legalities of requiring the seismics. I know that they've discussed possibly having them on the adjacent properties. As far as, is there a resource that the adjacent owners can go to say, what do I need to prepare for this? What do I need to look at? What do I need to take pictures of? Because there's always speculation, like 2 blocks down, oh, I never had this crack anymore.
Right.
Can the neighborhood in itself, given the fact that there's other developments coming down the pipeline, is there something that they can get ready for? Because these are, some of these homes are over 100 years old or close to it,
Right.
that hey, we could do better to kind of help them prepare in the event that there are issues.
Yeah, we certainly have been encouraging that dialogue between the developer and the adjoining residents. I don't want to speak for Related Group, but typically a large company like theirs, it's in their best interest to go out and monitor the surrounding properties, to do those evaluations, to take videos, to take photos. So if a claim is made, they have the documentation as to whether that was there before they started. So it's generally in their best interest to do that type of work. Again, I don't want to put them on the spot, but generally all the major contractors that we've worked with in the past have done that with adjoining properties, particularly when they're right against another development.
Well, I have no problem putting people on the spot. I don't remember what was agreed to. Sorry, Mayor, follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
For the applicant, are you guys putting the seismic readers on the adjacent properties?
For the record, Brian Seymour, you can imagine we haven't gotten fully to that stage yet, but we're happy to sit down with Angela and walk through, and I know she and Andrew have been in touch as well. The only specific agreements we have in place is the one I discussed previously. But, Related Group is not going to do anything that puts them at liability for neighboring properties. They're going to take all appropriate measures. They're going to protect, whether you have agreements or not. They have to follow, standard process, and they have to do things to look out for their neighbors anyway, in addition to the fact that your staff looks at everything. From the seismic reader perspective, I don't know exactly how they're going to dig, how they're going to get the foundations in. There is a direct soil boring that doesn't cause any vibration when you do it. They did it across the street from my office when one Flagler was done. I probably spent more time there than my house, so I probably did live there. I never noticed a thing about any vibration or anything else that was going on. So I don't think we've gotten to means and methods at this point, but certainly Mr. Fortenberry and Mr. Chesnick will work with them and continue to update them, let them know what's going on.
Thank you. I appreciate the efforts of staff of trying to figure out maybe tying that to the permits, and I know we'll continue this conversation. I know that the readers are important for the adjacent residences, and so if that's a possibility, I'll continue working with you because I know you guys are, and I appreciate the commentary from the neighborhood because I know that that's important.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Any cards? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion.
I move approval of ordinance number 5125-25, a rezoning to change the zoning designation of approximately 1.45 acres located at 4906 North Flagler Drive from multifamily high-density residential to residential plan development. This motion is based upon the application submitted, the staff report, factual testimony, the recommendation of the planning board, and the findings that the request complies with the comprehensive plan and the standards in section 94-32 of the city's zoning and land development regulations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, can you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 5125-24, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of West Palm Beach, Florida, amending the zoning map of the City of West Palm Beach, Florida, by rezoning one parcel located at 4906 North Flagler Drive, approximately 1.45 acres from multifamily high-density residential MF32 to residential plan development RPD, to create the Apogee Residential Plan Development, providing for the establishment of development regulations by separate resolution, declaring this zoning map amendment to be consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, revising the zoning map of the city accordingly, providing for an effective date, and for other purposes.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. President Ward?
Move approval of resolution number 51-25, establishing the development regulations for the Apogee Residential Plan Development. This motion is based upon the application submitted, the staff report, factual testimony, the recommendation of the planning board, and the findings that the request complies with comprehensive plan and the standards in sections 94-32, 94-35, and 94-207 of the city's zoning and land development regulations.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now, with item 10.2, we do need a motion to continue.
I move to continue consideration of resolution number 74-25 to the City Commission meeting scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. on April 14th, 2025 in the City of West Palm Beach City Commission chambers located at 401 Clematis Street, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we now turn to public comment. And we have several cards. So when I call out your name, I'm going to call out 3 names. If you start making your way toward the podium. Michael Cleveland, Mike Schmidt, and Satima Fowler. Mr. Cleveland.
Good evening again, Mayor, staff, those in the audience. I knew when she chaired for you, Mayor, your first absence, she was going to run for mayor. I told her so in that meeting. I'm going to ask each one of you on the dais, elected officials, to sponsor. The summer's coming up. Swimming has always been a problem in Florida. I'm going to ask each one of you to sponsor at least 5 children in your district for swimming lessons. I think the lesson's only $20. That includes you too, Mayor, if you can sponsor 5 kids. It will be very, very rewarding to both the community and the child. Spruce Avenue. As of late, Spruce Avenue has had some construction installing the ADA type devices on the sidewalks. The contractors left a lot of mess along the way. But my point is that took out a lot of pavers. In the early 90s, through the Pleasant City Neighborhood Association and myself, we had the Spruce Avenue from 14th Street to 23rd Street streetscape, in which they put pavers, sidewalk work, trees, and plants. Well, they took the pavers out and replaced it with sod. The city doesn't have enough staff to maintain these easements without staff, sod, and landscaping. So my question is, why didn't they replace the pavers that they took out? Because the residents are not going to take care of it. It's going to make the easement in that part really nasty, just like on 15th Street, L.A. Kersey, with the other stuff they did years ago that's not being maintained, and periodically it looks like crap. This is Pleasant City. It's my home. I would ask that you consider putting pavers back there. They took them out. They threw them away. Why? In addition to that, on Spruce Avenue, the recent construction on 24th Street, 25th Street, is going to house quite a bit of people coming through there, and they're going to shortcut through Spruce Avenue. I asked a long time ago that Spruce Avenue, just like it did at 25th Street, to be blocked off at either Northwood or 23rd Street so that that traffic doesn't come through, because the main reason why they blocked it off in the first place was to keep people from Pleasant City going through Northwood area. Something has to be done. Children are going to school in that area, and that traffic coming from those residents heading down south, it's going to be very tremendous. I propose a circle, for one reason, to be put placed at 21st Street in Spruce. That would slow down a lot of traffic and help keep those kids safe going to school. Thank you. Have a good evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Mike Schmidt.
Hello, I'm Mike Schmidt. I'm the Vice President of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I'm here tonight about the Downtown Master Plan. I realize that we're very early on in the process. We're just in the roundtable phase, the preliminary cogitations over all the stuff. But the Downtown Neighborhood Association feels very strongly that we should have some sort of seat at the table. We don't necessarily have to have a seat on the steering committee. I understand there is a steering committee, but at the very least, we would like an invitation to attend the steering committee meetings, have one of us represent the DNA, and therefore representing downtown residents at the steering committee, because it's very, very important, we feel, to be involved early on in the process while all the big ideas are being considered, debated, and whatnot. I guess the way to think of it is, imagine if in your own neighborhood, whether it's, LSET or SOSO or whatever, imagine doing a major change of building densities, heights, traffic flow, and all that kind of stuff, and not inviting the neighborhood association to take part in those things. And it's not just, some kind of we feel personally slighted or anything like that, but we've been around for 20 years. We mail out our monthly newsletter to over 4,000 people. We also conduct periodic surveys, in fact, one of them extremely recently, about what downtown residents like or don't like, or what they'd like to see changed, or what they think ought to stay the same, or whatever about the downtown master plan. So we feel as if we have a lot of information that the steering committee may not be aware of. So that's essentially what we're asking for. I sent out emails last week to assorted commissioners. In case you didn't get that, these are some of the ideas that we would like to, just based on the polling of our residents, that we would like to see the steering committee consider. And most importantly, though, is to have one of us be represented, or I should say have the DNA have a representative at all steering committee meetings so that we can at least listen, take notes, and understand what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Satima Fowler.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor James, commissioners, and city staff. So my name is Satima Fowler, and I live downtown. I'm also the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. So the DNA is the largest association downtown, representing the voice of the residents. So yet, as far as we know, no DNA member has been included in the downtown master plan meetings, or the board has not been approached to find somebody to be, part of that committee. So first, I want to just thank Commissioner Fox and Commissioner Ward for hearing our concerns and responding back. We appreciate your engagement. We understand that there may be a downtown resident that is on the steering committee, but being a resident alone, I don't think qualifies or represents the broader interests of the community. So the DNA exists specifically to advocate for downtown residents, and we actively engage with a diverse range of people, everything from condo owners to renters, from young professionals to retirees. We host meetings, we gather feedback, and facilitate conversations about what matters most to the people who live here. For example, if somebody lived in a lower floor at One City Plaza would not know that the condos and the upper floors surrounding the new Roxy's rooftop, how the noise at 3 a.m. is deafening and people can't sleep. So, but we get that feedback from all across, downtown, not just, one place. That's why we have that broad database of feedback that we can assist with. So this DMP plan is going to shape the future of the residents for decades, yet the voice of the DNA members who live downtown is missing, and that's a problem. Residents experience the impact, like I talked about these decisions where there's traffic or there's noise, building heights, green space, overall quality of life. So, and I think there's also maybe a misconception that maybe the DNA members, we are opposed to development and growth, and we're not. We support smart growth, and we just want a plan that is inclusive of the residents who live here and have a structured voice in the process of the revision. So that's why, we would love something like an advisory committee made up of residents to give input to the steering committee, and then also maybe have a resident that the DNA feels is most qualified to represent us, be also part of the steering committee, and maybe some resident surveys to gauge opinions before major changes are approved. So Again, just in conclusion, the DNA is the most organized, engaged, and informed group when it comes to downtown living. And if the city is serious about including residents in this process, it also makes sense to work with the organization, DNA, that has been dedicated to
Thank you very
representing
much.
them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, I've got 3 other cards I'm going to read. If you start making your way toward the podium. There are 2 podiums, by the way, if you want to split it up. Chris Saya, okay. Laureate Smith and Lauren Cole. Mr. Saya?
Yes. I'm here to speak on behalf.
Could you just state your name for the record and address for the record, please?
I'm sorry?
State your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Christopher Saya, S as in Sam, A-I-A. I have recently left the city of West Palm Beach. I live in 5121 Laird Lane, Jupiter, Florida. I used to live on 52nd Street, 622 52nd Street, West Palm Street. Robert Watkins is a code enforcement guy, and I own that house still on 52nd Street. And I'm hearing that he's having problems. I'm not sure exactly what it is. He asked me to speak on his behalf. He's not here today. He asked me to talk about how often he circulates around his community to do code enforcement and also his communication skills. I can only speak on to what I can tell you what his interactions with me have been. But he's very good in communications. When there's a problem at the house, he sends a picture to me, tells me to take care of it, and then I take care of it and send a picture back to him, and I guess then he goes and checks it out. I've never had any problems with him. I do own other properties in West Palm Beach, and he's probably the best communicator of all the code enforcement guys that I've dealt with, and ladies. With respect to him being there, I've seen him many, many times. I'm not sure much more I can add, but I just want to let the commissioners and mayor, you know that he does do his job fairly well. Thank you.
Thank you. Laureate Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Larry Smith, 4167 Afton Court. I'm also here in behalf of Robert Watkins. Just wanted to take a moment to recognize and express my gratitude for the dedication and professionalism of Robert Watkins, former code enforcer. Truly went above and beyond his for the community. When I was dealing with an issue in my mom's neighborhood, he left his zone to come over after I made 2 attempts to get the zone code enforcer to come out that I couldn't get out, but he got the problem resolved, and I just want to say it's a loss to the city losing Robert Watkins. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Cole.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I live on 1200 South Flagler Drive, number 603. That's commonly known as the Trianon. And I'm here because of yet more development in my neighborhood within 500 feet of us. As you may know, we've also had La Clara built there, 2 new buildings for the Ross development, Forte, and Bristol. They've all been within 500 to 750 feet of us. We're concerned about traffic. I'm concerned about the unlimited growth that we have without a traffic plan. I see plenty of people proposing new buildings, but no traffic plan. There needs to be an east-west and north-south flow traffic plan in West Palm Beach. It's a disaster. With the boat show here, you have 2 lanes northbound. I mentioned to Ms. Lambert that's when you at the tennis court designation. It really needs to be focused or people are going to get up in arms. With Trump in town, and who knows, for maybe even another 4 years, it has to be addressed. At least for a political standpoint for you commissioners, somebody has to say, yes, here's Mr. Ross, but we're also working for the traffic, and we're trying to develop a way of getting in and out of this town, east and west, north and south. For instance, in the Trianon, the Bristol, 80 people there, we have 110. In the Trianon, there's a do not block the box. I've petitioned traffic people, why don't we have that also? Because people getting over the bridge, you can't get out of our condominium. Anyway, 25th Street is a good example. This gentleman mentioned that. You have two huge complexes built up there. You have, 2 lanes north Dixie. You got 1 lane to get to Broadway. What are you going to do? 2 huge buildings. If nobody's been down 25th or 24th Street, they need to go look. There's no transition to get onto North Broadway. North Dixie or South Dixie coming into Lakeview. There's no transition. You pull into North Quadrille, there's 1 lane in Quadrille in front of City Hall. Everybody else is turning left or right. Olive is always blocked with either cones or a delivery truck, and as we just mentioned, Flagler could be or could not be closed because of the boat show. Really need to focus on it or people are going to be annoyed and it's going to impact your jobs, is my opinion. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. 2 other cards, Rick Rose and Matthew Farrar.
Hi there, Rick Rose. I live at 600 South Dixie Highway in West Palm Beach. And I just wanted to underscore, not as a member of the board of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, but as a resident in downtown, that it would be very important, really obligatory in my view, to have somebody representing the interests of downtown residents on the steering committee for the new downtown master plan. So I think that's kind of obvious. It's a major oversight from the mayor's office and the city to not already have someone on that board. It looks really bad, and it will taint any outcome of that committee moving forward if that's not changed. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Matthew Farrar.
Hello, City Commission. My name is Matthew Ferrer, 620 Winter Street. Just wanted to say that specifically for resolution number 5425, a lot of great comments that each one of you shared, a lot of good feedback. As a resident and also an individual who has a family, very interested just to see what that due diligence period shows. I think there's a lot of public input that's still to come, but I think a lot of the questions that were asked are the same questions I would have been asking for that project myself. Additionally, on a different note, first off, I mentioned the family because obviously if it's a private school, there might be an interest personally, but I think there's a lot of considerations to come for that project. Additionally, in the area that I live in, specifically in the South End, I think there just should be a higher police presence, specifically in the Forest Hill Boulevard area. And especially near the park, which is a great kind of keystone project that's happened to be a kind of a shining star in the South End. There's a lot of speeding and documented criminal activity in that area. I've witnessed it firsthand. And when you have people driving into the park, there's literally drug use on the side of the street right there on Georgia and Maddock. And it's a kind of a blighted area if you think about it. And it shouldn't be, especially with all the investment that went into the park. Other than that, Mayor James, I'm looking forward to the community meetings that you've put together with the new police chief. I think those are going to be a great opportunity for residents to both commend and also share concerns on what's going on in their areas. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We do have a card from someone who did not wish to speak but wanted me to read these comments. It's from Bennett Johan, 500 block of 53rd Street. The north end of Northwood Harbor has been in great hands under Officer Robert Watkins. We need the positive progress to continue as he was an exceptional employee who was focused on details and cleanliness. Okay, that is all the cards. For the record, there is a downtown resident on the Citizens Committee working with the Downtown Master Plan. All right, we'll now turn to comments from the dais, and we'll begin with President Ward.
Thank you. And it's good to know. I know that, thank you for coming to speak for the downtown residents. And I know just with what we've been dealing with in the North End, having that voice from the neighborhood association is so helpful. And so if that person isn't on the neighborhood association, I don't know if it's too late, but I agree that there should be a representative from the neighborhood association. They hear things, they go back, deliberate, and frankly, we want to push participation from our neighborhood associations because it just makes our jobs easier and then our city better. Just as a reminder, and I'm sure the mayor is going to bring this up, but the mayor and our newly appointed police chief are having their public safety community meetings, and the first is going to be held Wednesday, April 9th. That's next Wednesday at Gaines Park, starting at 5:30. And another reminder for Teacher Appreciation Week business recruitment. If you know any businesses within the city that would like to provide a discount to teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week, May 5th to May 9th, you can cater it however you would like for your business. And we're just trying to show our teachers how much we appreciate them in West Palm Beach. And we help out by advertising through the website, and as well as stating your businesses as a participant at our meeting. And so if you can participate, fantastic. Please reach out to my office and we can give you more information. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Warren?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it would be a great idea to support some youth in the area to learn swimming. Do we offer swimming at Gaines Park or at any of our neighborhood parks?
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay, excellent. I'd like to meet with you offline and perhaps talk about how I can support some of our students in the community.
Okay, and I will send an email to the commissioners and the mayor just outlining what our program entails.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I would just like to congratulate the incoming commission president, Commissioner Lambert, for being elected by your peers. And congratulations on the great job at Mallets and Martinis, which were the proceeds benefited Vita Nova. Commissioner Lambert was the host of the event, and it was phenomenal. I think they exceeded their goals for the evening, and it was very well attended, and everyone had a great time. So congratulations to everyone, and I'd just like to say again that I am honored and delighted to be a peer of yours, and I think that you're amazing women doing amazing things, and you make it look so easy, and it is not. But and the mayor, yeah, you do too.
You do, yeah,
you do.
Wow, okay.
You do. So,
Women's History Month.
but I applaud people that have great people around them. That shows brilliance.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So again, ladies, phenomenal job. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for holding our city up. Thank you for all of the heavy lifting. Thank you for all of the innovation and the thoughts and bringing things forward. Thank you for being the ones that execute plans that are presented to you.
What would I do without you?
What could be done without you? So again, thank you all, Madam Clerk, Madam Administrator, Madam City Attorney, to my colleagues, Christy Fox.
We're going to start putting 3-minute limits on
to outgoing president, my outgoing president, President Ward, and my incoming president, Commissioner Lambert. Thank you all for all that you do. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox, please.
Well, thank you for thanking us. Well, thank you really to all the downtown neighbors for coming out tonight. I really appreciate hearing from you. I'm also a downtown neighbor, and when I started this position as city commissioner, my district went almost to Forest Hill, and because of the growth of the downtown in 2020 after the census, half of my district essentially was eliminated because we have so much growth and so many residents living downtown, many more than we did when we were looking at the downtown master plan the first time. So I would hope that there are other ways to involve the downtown neighborhood group. I think it's also essential that we have the developer perspective, and as they are our partners in the next steps, but they don't see the things that you do when you're living here day to day, when you're going home at the end of the night, when there's noise or light or things like that that we didn't used to have to think about as much because we didn't have as many people living downtown. It was mostly people leaving at 5 o'clock. As you've said many times, Mayor, you could stand on Clematis Street and throw a bowling ball down the street after 5 o'clock and not hit anybody. So I'm certainly hopeful that we are able to find a balance in including their voices, whether or not it's on the steering committee or at least some other active participation, and I will continue to advocate for that as well. Thank you. Last year, I had the opportunity to join the TPA on a bike immersion trip to the Netherlands, and I'm very excited to share that in 2 weeks, I will be going on another bike immersion trip, this time to Amsterdam and Paris. And we are going to be looking at firsthand two of the most bike-friendly cities in the world and looking at the way that their infrastructure is done. And hopefully there are lessons to be learned, especially now that we're looking at our bike master plan as well. I think obviously biking is not for everyone, but if we could make biking safer and it was an option for some people, that helps people that are driving, it helps people that are walking. I think having more options is going to be beneficial to all people, and making it as safe as possible is just, I'm really excited to see some of the other opportunities that we might be able to bring back and implement as we are moving forward with our plan. So I look forward to telling you more about it. I will not be here in 2 weeks from tonight, but I will bring postcards and tchotchkes back for all of you while you're holding down the fort. And I also just want to say congratulations to Commissioner Warren and Peduzzi once again on being reelected without opposition. That is such a testament to your work for the city, and I look forward to the next, well, at least 1 year, 1 to 2 years. And Commissioner Lambert, congratulations. And Commissioner Ward, thank you again for your service as our president. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Satima, Mike, and Rick for coming. I think you brought up some really good distinction, that begs to be given some more thoughtful consideration, that a resident is different from a representative of the neighborhood association where you might hear other considerations. So I really do appreciate you bringing that up, and hope that you have an opportunity as the neighborhood association to weigh in and participate in a meaningful way in the downtown master planning process. Speaking of downtown, I was at a Fire Station 4, which is just south of downtown, open house that they had on, I think it was on Sunday, and they were actually talking about downtown, and the administrator recently sent out an email, which I was so glad to see, that Rescue One, which is that services our downtown neighborhoods, that we began staffing additional rescue downtown. And I bring this up when I was at Station 4, because not only did this impact our downtown residents at getting faster service, but I was hearing firsthand from the firefighters at Station 4 that now that we have additional staffing and additional rescue, that they are being called less to go to help and serve and back up the downtown. So I think that this is just a win-win overall for our city, and I'm just really pleased to see that we were able to make this happen. I look forward to hearing more success stories as this continues to move forward. Also, last week, we had the groundbreaking for the Boys and Girls Club at Dreher Park, which is very exciting. I know that they are excited to serve over 220 students a day when they get up and running. I've been hearing that there were some changes to their original plans that involve moving more trees than was originally planned. I wanted to thank that neighborhood association, as well as the Cox family and a few others who have rallied together to put some funds together, and thank the staff for working with them, that hopefully we're able to save some of these trees, relocate them safely, because there are trees there that are 100+ years old, and it would be a tragedy to lose them. Coming up this weekend is Evening on Antique Row. It's on April 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. It is a tremendous showcase of the south end of our city and the antique stores and the history of our city, so I encourage you to attend. Also, beginning next week, as many of you have mentioned, our community meetings at the mayor and police chief Arajo are starting next week in Gaines Park. The one for District 5 in the south end will be on May 6th at South Olive Community Center at 5:30 p.m. And I want to echo all of the thanks and the uplifting of the women because it is the last day of Women's History Month. And I want to thank our Administrator Johnson for having the second annual Women's History Month extravaganza. I had an opportunity to participate in a fireside chat talking about leadership, and there were probably 30 or 40 women in the room that I was in, and we had a chance for everyone to share. And I asked them a few questions when they shared. I asked them not only what department they worked in, but how long that they worked there and who were their mentors. I'm excited to say that we had someone in the room who has worked for the city for 1 month, and someone who had worked for the city for 36 years, I think it was, 34 years? 34, okay, you know. And they were so excited to share that their mentors and people who had inspired them were their colleagues, their friends within City Hall and within the city. And I just have to say that the future is bright for our city with these women who also mentioned many men who supported them along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me start off by saying that I am truly honored to sit on this dais with such wonderful women. All of you are just fantastic. Let me thank you for all that you do on behalf of our city. All right, now we got that out the way. We just finished a boat show a couple weeks ago, and 5 days. The event, as I understand it, was a tremendous success. It required a lot of people working together to ensure that success. So I want to take a moment to congratulate the Marine Industries Association on a successful event, but most importantly, I want to thank city staff, our police officers, firefighters, and all others involved in ensuring that our residents and visitors were safe and had a joyful experience during the show. Now, I recognize and acknowledge that there are disruptions while the boat show is in town. Nonetheless, the show brings significant economic impact to our city, benefiting our restaurants and retail shops and hotels. I'm also proud of the city staff that contributed to that success. And I'm proud that our city represented itself as a premier destination to those who were visiting last week. And also, I think it's important to recognize that a portion of the boat show's proceeds support its Give Back program that provides grants to nonprofit organizations to underwrite environmental and marine education programs. That's certainly a priority of mine. Commissioner Lambert mentioned the groundbreaking for the Boys and Girls Club in Dreher Park. That event is just another reminder of how our city comes together to uplift one another. The work that the Boys and Girls Club does is fantastic, and we certainly look forward to the new facility. It'll be located on land designated by the city of West Palm Beach, and through charitable donations totaling millions of dollars, including a lead gift from Julie and Mike Connors, this location, Boys and Girls Club location, will be serving hundreds of West Palm Beach children each and every year. Aside from providing workforce readiness programs and tutoring opportunities for children between the ages of 5 to 18 years old, the club will also be helping to ensure a family has a safe, healthy environment for their children while mom and dad are at work. And thanks to the Boys and Girls Club, families will be charged just $35 a year, and that's only if the family can afford it. Tremendous work. It's interesting that all of the great things happening in our city. If you think of the Boys and Girls Club, and I mentioned this in my State of the City, Boys and Girls Club, what they're doing, Cox Science Center, what's happening there, the park, all of those organizations raise a significant amount of money from donors whose children or grandchildren will not benefit from their generosity, but so many other kids for generations to come will benefit. And I'll be sharing, actually later this week, I'll be speaking at the Smart City Expo, and that is one of the things I'm going to harp on, is that spirit of collaboration that is part of what I call the secret sauce of West Palm Beach. The Smart City Expo is one of the country's leading events for urban innovation. I was invited to participate in the fireside chat discussing ways to reinvent the American city. This is an exciting opportunity to share our city story with leaders from across the world and discuss the progress we are making in finance, tech, transportation, and infrastructure, public safety, and so much more. So it's an exciting opportunity. It was also previously mentioned about the upcoming community meetings, public safety community meetings on Wednesday, April 9th. The city will hold its first public safety community meeting at Gaines Park Community Center starting at 5:30 p.m. I and our newly appointed police chief, Tony Arahu, encourage residents to participate in this series of public safety community meetings. We'll be holding them throughout the city to hear directly from a new police chief so we can hear directly from residents their thoughts on the future of policing in West Palm Beach. Visit WPB.org for more details. By the way, the meeting on April 15th has been postponed, so we will update the website to show that there would be an alternative time for that. Youth Climate Action Fund would like to remind this community, especially qualifying youth ages 15 to 25, that the Youth Climate Fund deadline is fast approaching. I'm honored that West Palm Beach has been accepted into this project for the second time, and I can't wait to see the innovative climate initiatives that result from this program. Winning projects will receive micro grants between $1,000 and $5,000 and mentorship from local experts. The deadline for youth to apply has been extended to Friday, April 11th. It's Friday, April 11th. To learn more and apply for the program, please visit wpb.org/YCAF. That's wpb.org/YCAF. Also, just want to state for the record that there will be ample opportunity for the community to weigh in on the downtown master plan. That is a community engagement will be a specific part of that process. So those are all my remarks for tonight. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the great city of West Palm Beach. Good night. This meeting is adjourned.